Okay, so I just want to say I'm very, very delighted and thrilled and honored to have Clare Meeker with us tonight. She's an incredible author of nonfiction books for children and adults like myself, because I love her books as well. And she is a regional author, and she has ties here to our San Juan Island. So we are very excited about that as well. And her latest book, Growing Up Gorilla, as you can see by the slide, has just won the 2020 Washington State Book Award for the Young Readers category. It's an excellent book. It's a book that you can check out here at our San Juan Island Library. And then also our Griffin Bay Bookstore, which is our local source for the book, has copies on hand right now. So if you are interested in purchasing her book, I know that myself, I have bought the book and I have gifted it to my nephew, and it's a wonderful gift and it's a wonderful story to share with children, especially in our area, because a lot of our island children do go to the Woodland Park Zoo and they see these animals, and Clare's story really makes these animals a lot more accessible. It gives a lot more context and understanding to their lives. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a plug for that if you have some children you'd like to share this book with. All right, well, with no further ado, I want to welcome Clare Meeker. Thank you, Clare, for joining us tonight. Let's see, Clare, are you there? There you are, Clare.
In 2015, the Woodland Park Zoo welcomed a new member of the family, a baby Western lowland gorilla named Yola. But soon after the birth, her mother, Nadiri, walked away from the newborn. Was she not interested in caring for the baby, or did she just not know what to do? Gorillas learn basic skills, including how to parent, from watching other gorillas around them. But Nadiri had never been around a newborn baby before. With gorilla populations decreasing rapidly in the wild, zoos play an important role in helping to protect them. The Woodland Park Zoo staff were determined to help Yola bond with her mother and the rest of Nadiri's family. With encouragement from the zookeepers, Nadiri visited Yola every day, getting familiar with her presence. But would Nadiri protect Yola when she needed help? Would Yola be able to bring her gorilla family together? Look out for Leo, the shy male silverback, and Akenji, Nadiri's pushy sister, and their important roles in this gorilla family. Learn their story in Clare Hodgson Meeker's latest book, Growing Up Gorilla, on sale September 3rd, 2019.
Okay, so welcome. Can everyone see me? Right now I am, I think I need to change my view. Can you all see me? Raise your hand.
Clare, we can see you, yep.
Okay, good, because I just see a little San Juan Island sign. So that's okay. I will move on. So the video trailer that you just saw was created by students at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma. And they did it for a marketing class, and they did such a great job of setting out this story problem. They said it in a way that their own way, which was nice and concise, and also addressed Yola and her gorilla family. So Yola's family is a fascinating family of real characters with personalities that are very different from one another, but somehow they still manage to get along, for the most part, as family, like many human families do. Gorillas and humans share 97.7 of the same genes: smart, big-brained, social animals with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and opposable thumbs. We all seek food and shelter and need love. If only we spoke the same language. So I'm going to accompany my talk with a slideshow because the pictures in this book are just too good to not share. And I hope that this transition works for me to go back to the slideshow. You'll see me and continue to see me as I talk in the corner of your screen. So here we go. Animal stories. True animal stories have become, my real passion. The last 4 books that I've written, 4 of the last books I've written were about wonderful animals at zoos and in the wild who were rescued by very amazing heroes, these animal care specialists who have played such an important role in so many of these endangered animals' lives, and yet are very quietly behind the scenes. So what I look for in coming up with a true animal story, which ones are the stories that I'm going to really spend the time researching and writing about and making a book from, are stories that have a dramatic narrative build, just like a great story that you would hear a storyteller tell. And also strong characters that will engage kids and it also provides information that that kids can take away and sometimes even take action from. So it's a tall order, and books take a long time to write and get published, but baby animal stories, especially cute baby animals, seem to really hook our young readers. So the animal care specialists that I have really relied on for a lot of the information on and the animals at the aquarium in the case of the sea otter story I told, and also growing up gorilla with Yola, who you see in the left-hand corner. The gorilla keeper, Judy Sievert, on the left, watching and talking about Yola. And on the right, the upper right side, Harmony Frazier, who actually was an infant animal care specialist who just retired, but she took care of Yola for the first few months when they were trying to reintroduce mother and baby. And the center photo is from the Seattle Aquarium when I was working on the Lutas Little Wave Eater book. You see Lutas, the orphan sea otter there in the bottom of the picture, and C.J. Casson, who was the human who hand raised her for the first couple of months of her life. Nadiri was 19 years old when she gave birth to Yola at Seattle's Woodland Park Zoo. 19 years old is old for a mother, not too old, but it's definitely older. And this was her first baby. The gorilla keeper, Judy, had practiced with Nadiri using this burlap doll to have her pick it up and hold the doll to prepare her for what her role was going to be after the birth. Because in the wild, most gorilla mothers constantly, as soon as they give birth, they pick up and they hold their baby and carry the baby with them constantly to make sure that they're safe and well fed. But within minutes of Yola's birth, Nadiri, in fact, walked away from her baby. The question was, as you saw in the trailer, was she not interested in being a mother, or did she not know what to do? And of course, if only she could tell us. But what the keepers were remembered and were prepared for was that 19 years earlier, when Nadiri was born, her mother refused to care for her after a very difficult birth when she was had to be anesthetized. And when she woke up, she was very foggy and did not show any interest in the days and weeks to come of taking care of the baby Nadiri. So Harmony Fraser took over and helped to raise Nadiri during the first 7-8 months of her life. And this was the standard practice in those days for zoos. This is almost 20 years ago. And what happened was that the babies would be cared for in a nursery away from other gorillas, because this was thought to be the best way the safest way to keep them healthy and safe. But unfortunately, this practice had resulted in a pattern of mother gorillas in ensuing generations refusing to care, in some cases, to care for their babies. So when Yola was born, the gorilla staff, the zoo staff, were determined to help Nadiri bond with her baby. They decided that the best way for her to learn how to act like a gorilla would be to have her own mother care for her, surrounded by her gorilla family. But this was no easy task because Yola needed to be cared for. She was an infant. The first goal was to get the baby to accept a bottle, to make sure that she was well fed. But at the same time, they wanted to have her be within eyesight of Nadiri. So what they did was the zookeepers did something they'd never done before, which was to construct a den for the baby right in the gorilla dens. It was right next to Nadiri's den and within sight of the rest of her gorilla family. The next goal was for Nadiri to get comfortable being around the baby and confident enough to pick her up. With keepers being in the den, they could set up 3 visits a day for Nadiri and Yola. That is to ask Nadiri to come into Yola's den and kind of attract her with a little treat and promise a little treat. And her favorite treat were raisins. And so then Nadiri would come in, usually stay far apart from the baby because she seemed nervous being around the baby. Being a new mother of a baby many years back, I can remember how scary it is in a way to feel this helpless child and am I going to be all thumbs? Am I going to know how to care for this baby? And we don't know, but maybe that's what Nadiri was thinking. And it was also, the zookeepers knew that Nadiri was also, by nature, her personality, she was shy, she was nervous, And she was also lower in the gorilla family hierarchy. And we'll go into that in a little while. So she was definitely reluctant at first, but this is where the magic of Judy Sievert's magic and the labor and time that she put in to being there, just not inside the den, outside the dens, but encouraging Nadiri with her voice, with her words, with her rewards of treats to get close to the baby. And here is a perfect picture of Nadiri gradually getting closer. And of course, gorillas are very curious. So that became the driving force as soon as she became a little bit more comfortable. But some days she didn't want to come because Nadiri also had her own family group. She had the adult male silverback, Leo, and a Kenji, who was her younger half-sister. But this is where I wanted to say a few words about the gorilla the hierarchy of gorilla families. So the male adult silverback is at the top, and there are usually several females in the family group, and then the youngsters, the juveniles, with them. So the adult male silverback is the protector. He keeps peace in the family, and he helps guide the family to feed good feeding places, and is the protector. Leo was a very shy silverback. He had been raised in other zoos in what sounded like a fairly lonely existence. And so when he came to the Woodland Park Zoo, he was not really socialized very well and did not socialize very much with Nadiri and her sister Kenji, a little bit, but he kept his distance often. Kenji was very different from her older sister. Kenji was very outgoing, and she also was the dominant female in the group of the two. So Nadiri had a lower rank, and Kenji would sometimes pressure Nadiri, what they call to displace Nadiri, when Yola was, they could see Yola in her den, and Nadiri they were trying to bring Nadiri and Yola together. And Kenji, who was in the other den, was watching with Nadiri and would sometimes push her out of the way so that she could be in that position to watch and maybe get to see Yola, which she was not allowed to do until much later on. So this was Nadiri's family. And even though she had at times a difficult relationship with each one of them, sometimes the comfort of the familiar kept her from going to visit Yola, at least at the start. But gradually, Nadiri moved in closer to explore her baby's hands and face. This was a big step when she got close enough, and you can see Nadiri's large fingers compared to Yola's tiny hand. Gorillas are very, very curious. And they also, in the wild, there's a lot of grooming and touching. So it was definitely unusual for Nadiri to be standoffish with her baby at first. And with the gorilla keeper's help, she gradually started getting closer physically, at least would stay in the same den with the baby. By 2 months, Yola could sit up and watch the world around her. So Harmony was doing a great job of taking care of Yola's needs, and Yola was doing what all babies do, just growing like a weed. Now it's interesting, gorilla babies in their first year develop twice as fast as human babies do. So at 2 months, she could sit up. At 3 months, she was starting to move around on her own, and she began learning to climb. She had long, strong arms and a strong grip. So that would help her as she learned to climb. Once she was mobile, Nadiri showed a lot more interest in her. And once she was mobile, Yola didn't cry as much as a young baby, normally does. And who knows, maybe the crying had something to do with Nadiri laying back and backing off when the baby cried. So it's fascinating to see how, as the baby develops, Nadiri herself just really begins to take notice and take more time with the baby, up to 2 hours at a time. So one day, Yola was climbing. She was climbing on an indoor vine that they had for her. It was actually a fire hose that was meant to look like a vine. She was climbing on the fire hose, and she reached out the way she normally would reach out to Harmony. But it was Nadiri who was in her den. And so all of a sudden, Nadiri just reached out and picked Yola up. I think she was 4.5 months at that point. And she picked her up and put her in her lap. And from that point on, everything changed. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute because I'd like to take a question, see if there is a question before I continue through to with the rest of the presentation.
Hi, Claire. It's Melina. Yes, we do. We have a very good question. So the question is, who is Yola's father, and was it done through artificial insemination?
Very good question. Okay, so there is another family group at the Woodland Park Zoo, and Yola's father was Vip from the other family group. And the reason why they were not together was that there are 2 groups, and Vip had his own group, but because Nadiri was able to get pregnant, and she was the only female who was able to get pregnant at the zoo at that time, they put them together, Vip and Nadiri together, to mate. And so Leo, who was the adult silverback in Nadiri's group, while he was not the father, he still took an immediate interest in Yola, as you will quickly find out when we get back to the show. So there was no artificial insemination, in answer to your question. It was another male silverback at the zoo who was Nadiri's mate. Okay, let's keep going here. So once Yola was with Nadiri, once Nadiri picked Yola up, literally, she did not want to let her go. And there was a period of time, another few months, where they had to make sure that they were, that Nadiri would take charge of her baby, and which she did. And they spent the night together, and then that worked out. And so it was all a very gradual process over the next couple of months. But during this time, Leo, who was always within eyeshot or earshot of all the goings on with Yola and Nadiri, from the very start, Leo had, had his eye on the baby. And this was so unusual for Leo, because he really didn't, until Yola came along, he really didn't socialize with any of the other gorillas. But when he saw the baby, he issued content grunts. When he was able to, he would come over to get as close as he could to the baby in the gorilla dens where the baby was being cared for, and he would stick his knuckle through the mesh, the metal mesh, so that he could touch Nadiri, just rub Nadiri's fur. And Nadiri was entranced with Leo. She was very calm with him, as calm as he was with her. So this was something that the keepers were so pleased about. And they knew that it was going to come in handy later on when it was time to introduce Yola to the rest of the family, so that she could join the family group on her own. So at 5 months, they decided that they would start the introduction of Akenji and Leo. Now, since Leo had always acted calm around Yola, while Akenji had not. Akenji was a little, she was curious, but she also showed signs of jealousy toward Yola, because Yola was the center of attention, both with Nadiri and with the other gorillas in the group. So that Akenji had a more complex relationship with Yola early on. So they decided that Leo would be the one who got introduced first. So they took one of the gorilla den rooms, and they put Yola and Nadiri in the room together, and then they introduced Leo. And Nadiri, as soon as she saw Leo walk into the room, even though Leo was calm and stayed a respectful distance away, she picked up the baby and she walked out of the room, which was exactly what the zookeepers were hoping for, because this would be the behavior of a protective mother, of any protective mother gorilla in the wild. And this is what they were looking for from Nadiri. So after that, they took a couple of, I think it was about 12 days where it was just Leo and Nadiri and Yola, Leo being introduced every day, reintroduced gradually, because he was calm, because he was respectful, and kept his distance until Nadiri, was comfortable with him too, Nadiri and Yola. Then they introduced Akenji, and Akenji was a little bit more rambunctious, and at one point, Leo had to jump up and rebuke her he gave a loud bark to make her stop. She was kind of pushing at Yola and upending her you know, just flipping her over. And Nadiri, who had this, you know, difficult relationship with her sister, needed help. And there was Leo to be that help and protector for her. So the keepers were so delighted to see him take on this role as protector and peacekeeper in the family. So today, Yola is almost 5 years old. There she is on the left. Leo passed away a couple of years ago, 2018, but he served the role of the adult silverback and a protector and a friend to Yola until his death. But now there's a new adult silverback in Yola's group, along with another female, Azuma, and her baby, who was born, she mated with Kwame, and Azuma mated with Kwame, and Katoka was born. And I just got word today that Nadiri is pregnant again, and also Kenji. So Kwame's been quite busy. So it's a very happy growing family here. And we're very excited that Nadiri is pregnant again, and really curious to see if when the baby is born, she's taken what she's learned and picks the baby up from the start. We shall see. So stories like Yola's help us understand the true nature of these animals and the important role zoos and other conservation organizations play in their continued survival. And I am happy to take questions for the next 15, 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Claire. That was so exciting. Before we start the live Q&A, though, I just want to clarify. So Kwame, the new silverback, he is the father, Nadiri's child, right? Oh,
the Kenjis.
oh my goodness. Okay, and that was all natural, not artificial insemination?
No. And actually, I heard you, but I saw it in the Seattle Times today that Nadiri is pregnant. I've yet to get the go ahead from the zoo about Kenji, but someone who's very close to the zoo filled me in tonight. So.
Oh, good. Well, let's see. I think I have another comment in the chat, and then we'll open it up for live Q&A. Oh, in the chat, somebody did say Nadiri is pregnant again. So what great news for Nadiri. We hope the second pregnancy goes well for her. Let's find out now if you would like to ask a question in the live Q&A, you can go ahead and do that now. If you know how to use the hand gesture where you raise your hand, that would help us, because then we can go ahead and kind of monitor the questions that way. And I think Lisa, my co-host, can help me with that as well. So if anybody would like to ask a question for Claire, now is a good time to do that. And we will just you can go ahead and unmute your microphones. We'll try to unmute them. Let's see. Lisa, can you unmute any microphones, or anybody have a question? Let's see. If you're seeing any questions here. I'm going to check the chat again. Let's see.
Melina, it looks like Pat Rose has a question.
Oh, great. Pat, what's your question for Claire?
Cat. It's Cat with a K.
Oh, Cat. Sorry, Cat.
Okay. So do you think that is the reason the mother rejected Yola because she had been anesthetized and didn't witness the birth? Is that, do you think why? I mean, does it happen? Have there been other gorillas that have given birth under anesthesia, and have they also rejected their babies?
It's not a hard and fast rule. This didn't happen to Yola. This happened to Yola's mother. When Yola's mother was born, her mother, so this is 2 generations back from grandparent of Yola. When she was giving birth to Nadiri, Yola's mother, she was anesthetized, and they don't know exactly why, but she did have a complicated birth and had to be anesthetized. And but she also, I have to say, she also rejected a Kenji, Nadiri's half sister. It happened again with a Kenji, but this was also, while we don't know exactly, what the cause was, the reason was, in those days, zoos around the country were raising the gorilla babies, the orphan babies, where the mothers would refuse to care for them. They'd care for them in a nursery away from the other gorillas to keep them safe and well fed. And of course, the zookeepers who were caring for them, the infant caregivers, were able to safely care for the babies. So what the Woodland Park Zoo did with Yola was something completely new for them. It had been done before in another zoo, but this was a pretty innovative way of caring for Yola in the gorilla dens, which are just, metal mesh dividers with the infant care specialist in one den with Yola, surrounded by the other gorillas. And there is some really wonderful descriptions in the book of spending the night in the gorilla dens and hearing the big adult male silverbacks pounding on the metal mesh, because they weren't used to having humans in the dens at night. So anyway, in answer to your question, this was a pattern that they saw not just at the Woodland Park Zoo, but they saw it in zoos across the country. So it's good that things have changed, and the zoos are really embracing that change.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions out there? Let me go back to the chat and see if we got anything else on the chat. Oh,
I have a question. This is Janet. Hi, Claire.
Janet.
Hi. I'm curious about your process in writing this book. How did you discover this as a story, and how did you come to recognize it as a story that would make a great children's book?
Yeah. So I heard about it because it was in the paper that from 6 months before Nadiri's birth, the Seattle Times, which carries some amazing stories of some of the animals at the zoo and the aquarium, they really latched on to Nadiri's first pregnancy. And so I was already familiar with Nadiri and with Nadiri's story as a baby, of having been rejected by her mother. And because I was writing the Hunsa book at the time, and the book about the baby elephant at the zoo. So I came to know Nadiri's story when she was a baby herself, when she was younger. So then when I saw 20 years later, 19 years later, when she was pregnant, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a story. I mean, we're getting generations here. So it was very exciting to start, start following everyone after Yola's birth.
Okay, I think we might have a next question from, I think it's Leah or Leah. If you have a question, Leah, you can unmute your microphone.
Hi, I grew when this was going on with Nadiri and Nat, I was a docent at the Woodland Park Zoo, and I did baby gorilla watches. And her mother, Jamoki, had a second baby after Nadiri, and we watched her for like a year. Jamoki was a horrible mother. She accepted the baby, but she barely took care of it. And Jamoki's mother didn't really mother her. And after a Kenji, they decided that no more, Jamoki just was not going to get pregnant again, and they put her on birth control. Yeah. So it may have more to do with maybe the way she was raised, but I don't think she wanted a mother. She would sleep and put her hands over her breast so the baby couldn't nurse while she was sleeping.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's very interesting to have, and someone who witnessed that I'm very glad that you told us, because yeah, I think it's, there are patterns, just like there are patterns of abuse, there are patterns of neglect, and it's sad, but not every person or every animal is cut out to be for the long and hard job of being a parent. But thank you for speaking up.
Well, you're welcome. But Kenji and Nadiri spent time together when Nadiri was young, and Nina started fostering her.
Yes.
She was always very interested in babies. Alafia was her foster mother, and it just killed her because when Alafia had her baby, she wasn't allowed anywhere near it. She'd keep wanting to get in there and steal it. But she used to take the babies when she was allowed around them and put them on her back and play with them.
Yes, yeah. Nina was an adoptive mom for Nadiri. So she had some kind of mothering.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there anybody else have a question? We're going to look here to see if not, just jump on in if you've got a question and we're missing you. I'm looking here to see if I see any hands raised. Give it a few more minutes, but Claire, I did have a question. Oops, sorry, my video's off. I did have a question. So Yola is about 5 years old. At what age do the gorillas start having babies? Like, would Nadiri and Yola ever have more like a grandparent situation? Or
so they can mature. They would be considered mature anywhere between 10 and 12. So it's possible that that at that point that Yola could get pregnant. And but they have, with the whole species survival plan, the AZA, that the umbrella organization that manages the breeding programs at zoos, they're very conscientious, very careful about, communicating when it's appropriate to take an adult female off of birth control in order for her to give birth. It just, they don't want to have overcrowding, and so they control that on a national level. And there are also, you know, in the past, and it was possible that if Nadiri had not bonded with Yola, that Yola could have had to be sent away to be to be with another gorilla family, because there were no other females at the Woodland Park Zoo who were suitable to be adoptive mothers the way Nina had been for Nadiri. So that was an additional incentive, you know, to keep Nadiri with them, to put in this huge time and effort to bring Nadiri and Yola together. 3 visits a day for several hours for several months.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I'm going to just check with my co-host, Lisa. Lisa, are you seeing anything that I might be missing? Otherwise, we might be wrapping it up.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And please feel free to order a book. Go through your local bookstore, your independent bookstore. We have Friday Harbor has Griffin Bay Books. In Seattle, Mercer Island's Island Books, or any of your local independent bookstores could order the book for you. And I so appreciate your coming and listening to my talk tonight.
Congratulations on your award recognition.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Thanks all.
You know what, Claire, before we leave, we got one last chat question. Would you be willing to answer it? Okay. So it comes from one of our viewers, and it says, what direct actions are the Woodland Park Zoo doing for wild gorillas? Do you have any insights into that, Claire?
Yes, you know, part of they take their job as conservationists very seriously. And I'm glad that you mentioned this. I should have mentioned it myself, but this is perfect. So they support gorilla programs, sanctuaries, and gorilla studies in the wild. The Mbeli Bai study. They also, and other sanctuaries for rescued gorillas and orphan gorillas. They also have a cell phone program where it's called Echo Cell, and there's a kiosk at the different places at the Woodland Park Zoo, where if you have an old cell phone, you can donate it. And they extract, the company, Echo Cell is the company, they extract the iron, the particular metal that is usually mined in gorilla habitat. So every cell phone that, you know, gives up this metal makes one less mine that needs to be opened up that destroys gorilla habitat. So I have a number of other back matter in the book that has websites and conservation organizations like PASA, PASA, that do remarkable conservation work around the world with gorillas. So that's all in the glossary of the back matter of my book. Thank you for asking that.
Wonderful. Well, Claire, I just want to say from the San Juan Island Library, thank you so much. And all the best. I know that you'll probably be talking about your book for many weeks to come because you won that award and that distinction. But again, thank you so much for taking your time tonight, and thank all of you at home or wherever you are with your portable devices tonight. Thank you for joining us.